This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
And welcome everybody to a special episode of the Animanicast. Today's episode, of course, we're going to be talking with Randy Rogel and Rob Paulsen. But before we do that, I thought I'd just add a little quick thing onto this. This episode was recorded right before a very special announcement was made. And of course, many of you are already aware of it. And that, of course, is that Animaniacs, the new season, will be premiering with 13 new episodes on November 20th. So while we did not get a trailer, we did, however, get a few cool little messages courtesy of Rob Paulsen, Jess Harnell, Tress MacNeille, and Maurice LaMarche, all speaking in and a little bit out of character, telling us about the new season coming up. And so here's a little bit of a combination of all their little messages together. If you'd like to hear each and every one of the messages individually, well, just head on over to our Twitter page. We've retweeted, of course, every single message individually, so you can give that a listen. So check it out, and then off to our interview with Randy and Rob.
Hello, Animaniacs fans! Yakko Warner here, live from the water tower.
Greetings, my friends. It is I, the brain. Yes, a pinky in the brain.
And I'm Dot, the Warner sister.
And you know, if it seems like it's been a minute since we've talked, it has.
We're especially happy now because the Animaniacs are coming back with all new shows. It's true! Oh, you have waited long enough.
But I'm telling you what, folks, it's been 22 years, but your favorite animated series, Animaniacs, is back on Hulu.
You're gonna love what we've done with the show.
Watch all episodes of our new Hulu original series, Animaniacs, on November 20th, only on Hulu. D.
And I'm still not wearing any pants.
And welcome everybody once again to the Animanicast. We're the only podcast out there that's dedicated to the animated television series Animaniacs, as well as other shows in the Rugerverse, such as Tiny Toon Adventures, Pinky and the Brain, and Freakazoid. We revisit each episode, we talk about all the cultural references and gags that we can find, and of course, share our memories of first watching each episode. And in the end, we give every episode a water tower rating. But today, we have two very special guests with us. I am Joey. Unfortunately, one of our co-hosts, Kelly, could not be here today due to some technical difficulties, but of course we do have my other co-host, my brother Nathan.
Maybe I'm a dog, a cute little dog with ears.
Oh my God, that's a tail that he can wag.
And joining us once again is the musical genius behind some of the best songs on Animaniacs. It's the incredibly talented Mr. Randy Rogel.
Woohoo! You are too kind, sir. And I'm going to make you my agent for that. Thank you. and only to be topped by the mega talent. I'll let you introduce him next.
Yes, and finally, you know him. You love him. He's the voice of some of your favorite cartoon characters throughout your childhood and today, of course, including Yakko, Pinky, and Dr. Otto von Scratch-and-Sniff. He's written an amazing book entitled Voice Lessons, How a Couple of Ninja Turtles, Pinky, and an Animaniac Saved My Life. And he's also been dubbed one of the nicest people on Earth. It's Mr. Rob Paulsen.
Hey.
Well, the nicest person, one of the nicest people on Earth is great because that is so much appreciated because I've spent so much money on therapy and medication. At that point. And booze.
Oh.
That,
It all work, it's all a working
thing. No, this is a professional segue. It is all in concert.
Ooh,
that all works together to keep me from being the professional asshole that I could be. Where I like to say Jess Harnell because he's an idiot. He's obnoxious. Now, see, that's why I spent all that money on medication and booze because I don't want to be like Jess Harnell.
I'm sure Jess is listening.
Right. I love you, Jess. Anyway, thank you for having us.
Thank you for being on the show. I know our listeners over the years are, when are you going to get Rob Paulsen? I'm like, he's a busy guy, but we are able to rope you in.
We're never too busy for you, Joey.
Oh, yeah.
That's very kind, Joey and Nathan.
Okay, we'll see you next week then. No, kidding.
I have listened.
Well, we can't see you next week. And why would that be, Rob?
Yeah, tell us, what is coming up?
Yeah, go ahead. Thanks for saying. Well, what Mr. Rogel is not so subtly referring to is that we have Animaniacs in concert, which Joey and Nathan have both experienced. We had this wonderful show that Randy and I have come up with, in which we performed Randy's music, which is legendary. That is not hyperbole. And as a result of COVID-19, we had a whole pile of gigs booked around the country this year. And of course, they've all been kiboshed. But necessity is the mother of invention. And we are now going to be able to do Animaniacs in concert on Looped, which is a new platform designed specifically for live concerts from wherever. And we are doing a Looped live Animaniacs in concert performance on August 15th at noon Pacific. And I don't know, Randy, I know will you guys be including the link in this podcast?
Yeah, we're going to have to make sure they can go to loopedlive.com. That's LOOPED, like the word looped live, LIVE, one word, .com. Take you right there. You can get your tickets. You can also sign up for a meet and greet, which after the show, then you would meet directly with me and Rob. We would FaceTime or Zoom right directly with you. We can sign things for you. You can record it and post it, whatever. But we would love to meet you in person, unfortunately, because we can't be there. But we can only do 50 of them.
Yeah, and 50 meet and greets, which will allow you to come and chat with Yakko, or Pinky, or Carl, Dr. Scratch and Sniff, or whomever is showing up at the moment, and Mr. Rogel. And
we would love to talk with you and sign stuff.
We can video it and all of that. It will authenticate whatever we can sign. So anyway, my point is that we have this fabulous concert in which we will be performing like the Rat Pack in the Water Tower with Randy's music and a pile of his Emmys in the background. And singing all his great songs. So thank you very much for letting us plug it. It's going to be a blast.
Loopedlive.com. Go get your tickets in there. And it's, for the basic tickets, only $25. I know I got mine.
Well, and bargain. Are you kidding me? In this day and age, you can't even buy a vaccine for $25. So
unfortunately.
Yeah, go watch us before you succumb to COVID. This is COVID Con.
COVID Con. I like that idea, Rob.
Yeah, why not?
Well, let's talk about, how did you two first meet? I'm assuming it's with Animaniacs, correct?
Well, here's actually, if I may go first,
please.
Because I had just joined the Animaniacs group because I've been writing another show, and the first song I'd written was that Yakko's World. And so then
wait. Hear what he just said, Joey and Nathan. The first song he wrote was Yakko's World. And he won't tell you this, but that was the song he had in his back freaking pocket for which he auditioned to get the job. That's how good Randy Rogel is. Okay.
Well, thank you, Rob. Let me tell you how good Rob is. I also been an actor, and I've done, maybe people don't know this, you can actually go to the YouTube and see it. I've done the Donald O'Connor role in Singing in the Rain in like 26 productions around the country. So Warner Brothers was kind enough to let me go do that. So I was actually out of town doing the show when the director, the late, great Rusty Mills, called me because they were putting together Yakko's World to ask me a couple of questions about it there. And he sent me a cassette. Remember what those used to look like? A cassette tape? Yeah. He mailed that to me, and I put it in, and I listened to it, and I had never even met Rob. And I called Rush. I said, who is this guy? He's like amazing. And he says, he did it in one take, Randy. I thought, I got to meet this. So I met Rob vocally. Then when I met him in person, of course, everybody falls in love with Rob when they meet him. So that's that's my story of how we met. Bob, what's your story?
Well, that essentially the same thing. The first song I recorded for Animaniacs was Yakko's World, and obviously the powers that be, Mr. Ruger, Gene McCurdy. I mean, if you're gonna, why not start out by killing them. And that song has become, it is not hyperbole, that little 2.5 minutes of pure American art has become utterly iconic as a result of first Randy's song, then, Tom and the incredible staff and skill and the animators, et cetera, et cetera. But it speaks for itself. It sings for itself. It's become iconic for a very good reason. It's a seminal piece of American art. And it was the first song I recorded for the show. And it got better from there. How often does that happen, you guys? Pretty much never.
Yeah.
We're talking about it with people who were little boys at the time that show came out. And I'm still a little boy. I just have gray hair now. But honest to God, that really truly is. Even when you go back to Carl Stalling and Milt Franklin and Chuck Jones and Bob McKimson and all the usual suspects, how often does that happen? Even if you look at One Froggy Evening or Kill the Wabbit, that's Wagner. That's not original.
Right.
It's not, One Froggy Evening is original, but Hello, My Baby, Hello, My Honey, that's not original music for Warner Brothers. Someone else wrote that. What we're talking about here, and this is important, we're talking about an utterly original piece of music.
Well, now, wait a minute. Hold on. The lyrics are original, but the music, I had written actually to another tune, but what happened to me, Rob, as I was doing it? It was too slow. I needed something where the words came at you like a machine gun,
Yes.
I was thinking, and the other thing too is everybody knows that little Mexican hat tune.
That's true. I agree.
But there's a lot of other songs where I like to say that the songs are the music is original.
No,
but,
you're correct.
But just like, Kill the Rat, I like to think that at least Yakko's World identifies. When you hear it, you think of Animaniacs.
And you're right. And thank you for correcting me. That's not fair. I don't know who wrote the Mexican hat dance. I'm sure it's PD by now.
Oh my God, I don't know, and nobody knows. It's so old. I mean, I go back centuries.
But you see my point.
Yes.
Hello, My Baby, Hello, My Honey was a George M. Cohan. I don't know if he wrote it, but it was a vaudevillian number and blah, blah, blah. And Wagner wrote Ride of the Valkyries, which was Kill the Wabbit. But we're talking about something that was a literal clean sheet of paper, and right out of the goddamn chute, that's what they aired. And it had the desired result. People just went, holy crap, what is that?
Yeah, what is this show?
Thanks to you guys, 25 years later talking about it. That speaks really highly, first and foremost, about Randy's song. And then when you put it in the hands of geniuses like Tom Ruger et al., this is what you get.
Yeah, totally. Let's talk about a little bit about the concert that it actually. How did it actually come to be? Like, how did you guys decide, let's do Animaniacs in concert?
That's a great. I'm going to give credit to Rob, because here's what happened. Rob does, God, I don't know how many he does hundreds of personal appearances every year. I mean, guys on the road a lot. And so Rob and I are also friends as well as colleagues. So I'd seen him one time, I forget where, and he just mentioned to me, he says, hey, Randy, every time I go do it, people always ask me to sing those songs. I thought, well, great. That's wonderful. So then he comes and he says, you know what? I think there's an audience for all of them. I go, what are you talking about? The show's where he goes, Randy, I'm telling you, I am out there and there's an audience. And that's what what sort of raised the flag on it. But Rob does his podcast. He has hundreds of thousands of, Rob, tell me if I'm telling this correctly. He has hundreds of thousands of listeners. So they asked him to do a live podcast up at Universal Studios. So he brought in Maurice LaMarche, and they did a night of Pinky and the Brain. Of course, they just sold it right out. I think they did it again. So they asked him to do another one. And since I live very close to there, Rob called me and says, hey, why don't you just come up, sit at the piano, and we'll just wing it. We'll do some of those songs, right? So we did that, and we sold that one out. That was at the that was at the John.
That was the John Lovitz Comedy Club.
John Lovitz Comedy Club.
B.B. King.
Right at City Walk, right, up at Universal Studios. So we did it a couple of times. We did a couple of places, and then we thought, you know what? Maybe this might be a show. So then, of course, we had to go to Warner Brothers. We had to go to Steven Spielberg, blah, blah, blah. So it was a long
It was, and Randy glossed over it, but we're colleagues, but we're more friends than colleagues. The best part about this whole experience, you guys, and really, truly, you and Nathan, Joey, exemplify what is so best and so wonderful about this show. Fans and friends, turns out, are one and the same. And we've all known each other for a long time. We just often don't know that we know each other. And opportunities like you give Randy and me prove my point. When Randy and I are together, whether we're performing or not, it is an utterly joyful experience because let's face it, I mean, he's so, apart from being gifted, he's a delightfully kind man, and everybody associated with this project is that way. And then when you can,
with you.
Well, but when you couple that, and look what happens with.
All I got to do is start doing this, and look what happens to Nathan and Joey. I do it like falling off a log, and you guys can't help it. It's like getting gas after certain kinds of food. You can't help it. You know?
Hey, Joey, let me brag on Rob here just for a moment of something that just happened. Is I've been writing this new, destined to New York Broadway, if we can get it there, a new musical, right?
For 2 years.
And I have a top-notch director guy, Mike Nichols, right-hand guy, right? So we're putting together the reading, and we've got, guys from the Book of Mormon leads, all that joy. But then we have all these incidental characters. It's just a reading. So we're trying to think, well, how do we save a little money here? And we thought, wait a minute. What if we get Rob Paulsen, who can do 80 different voices, right? So we bring Rob in, and so Rob goes, well, which part am I playing? I said, well, you're playing this part, this part, this part, this part, this part, this part, and that part, right? And so he's just like, well, okay. And he reads, so we do the reading, and he does a different voice for every and I had to lead from Book of Mormon on Broadway. He got a Tony nomination. And he was like a big Rob Paulsen fan too. We had Michael Kostrap, who's like, a big Broadway star and television star, and they were in awe of Rob. They're going, how the hell does he do that? He can just put one voice to the other.
You guys get our points. I haven't shut up since you started, and you see my point. You guys haven't stopped smiling since we started. And when Randy and I and his friends and his glorious Cynthia, all these people who are so talented, but it's Hollywood. You can throw a dart and hit talented people. What you can't always do is throw a dart and hit people like Randy and Cynthia and all these talented, and Jess and Tress and Maurice, and have them be the nicest, most utterly kind, down-to-earth people who will
especially after you've just been hit with a dart.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Usually you're upset.
Stupid freaking darts but you get what I mean. It's just the ethos of the show from the beginning was creativity, joy, originality, and it worked. And the genius of Tom Ruegger and Steven Spielberg and Gene McCurdy from 25 years ago has been borne out by what you guys are doing.
Well, the fact that the show is back in production, it's done very well. So now, they're looking ahead for the next season. But I will tell you too, since you just asked about the genesis of the show, Joey, I don't know if you've done much television or certainly stage. There's a concept known as sort of finding lightning in a bottle, because you can have the best talent, the best writers, and you still kind of don't have a hit. You have a flop, and it can go the other way too. We have all these unknowns, no budget at all, and you get the Blair Witch Project. So I have to say, what you find in the top layer, there's a very small top layer of voice talent. The voiceover talent. People like Rob, Tress MacNeille, Billy West. Jim Cummings, those guys, Frank Welker, these, and what the common thread you find with all these people is they're very good at improv. They've all done improv. Like Maurice LaMarche was a stand-up, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I've done a lot of stage too. So I think what happened is we put together this show, but Rob is a master at improv. So when we're doing the show, we have it scripted somewhat, but these guys, especially, we do it in different configurations. We'll have Jess there. Sometimes we'll have Maurice there. We have a Tress there. And what will happen is they go off script, and audience is going crazy. I sometimes literally, honestly, have to stop the show and go, okay, guys, we now need to get back to the show. So it's really a very, even though it's scripted, we know what songs we're going to do, it's a very spontaneous show. And you'll see that when you watch it. This one is going to be a little different. This is going to be a little more intimate, is because we can't be in a theater. All theaters are closed, right? We have this big, expansive living room that'll be mine, and we'll be there. So it's like coming to our house. You're going to see like where we rehearse.
We're only crowded by Randy's ego and his Emmys.
But it'll be a very intimate show, but at the same time, it's obviously a very well-rehearsed show, and it'll be just sort of a different experience. But I'm thinking the reason the show, we've done it in, I don't know, countless cities all over the United States. We're represented by ICM now. Warner Brothers has licensed us for everywhere. Spielberg is totally on board. The reason it's gotten there, I think, is because of the lightning in the bottle. Is I happen to have a lot of stage experience. Rob is just a master at improv. And I can bring, Rob and I can ask Maurice or Tress or just to step in, and it just soars. It's not like you have people who are good behind the mic, but they're not good in front of an audience. They just thrive in front of a live audience.
Yeah, every one of us has a live performance background, as you guys probably know. The fact is that we're preaching to like an encyclopedic choir. You guys know as much or more about the shows than we do, and the minutia. But you get my point. You have a viable, successful podcast when podcasts are a dime a million, and you have a distinctly singular podcast dedicated to one show that people embrace and watch. And that tells you pretty much everything you need to know about what Randy was talking about. It's so unusual, you guys. I mean, really, when you think about it, in the pantheon of great American animation, Bugs is 80, and Bugs deserves to be where Bugs is, right at the top. But we're talking about something that is a quarter of a century old, and it is every bit as powerful, arguably more so now. And the king of Hollywood at 72 years old wants to do it again. That is so, with brand new platforms. That is so unusual.
And the other thing that's kind of nice that because Rob and I, we kneel before the altar of Chuck Jones and Mel Blanc and that as do we all. But what's nice about Animaniacs right now, where we are at this time, those folks are all gone. I was lucky when I was at Warner Brothers. Chuck Jones was still there, and he had an office there. And we used to just go sit like kids, cross-legged.
Can you imagine?
He'd hold court, and we'd ask him. But he's gone now. But at least, you can go see Bugs on Broadway at the Hollywood Bowl, which we love. But you're just watching the cartoon. When you come to see Animaniacs in concert, you're not only seeing it done live, but by the people who did it. In other words, you're going to see Rob, you're going to see me, you're going to see the people who were actually the ones who did it, rather than another group sort of doing it. And that's the joy of seeing the show right now. At this point in history, because years will go by, we'll all be gone. But right now, you can actually see the real people who wrote them, who made them. We even bring in people like Peter Hastings. Peter Hastings was the chief author of most of the Pinky and the Brains. And he happens to be an outstanding bass player. So we brought him in with the orchestra. He's there. He comes forward. So you're actually getting the real experience.
That's pretty cool.
Who created the show.
Yeah, that was an amazing experience a year ago in San Diego, seeing Peter Hastings. And it was funny. We were getting ready for the show, and I turn over to Nathan and Kelly and go, "Is that Peter Hastings?" They're like, "I don't know."
And we're like, "We don't know what he looks like."
Let me go up there.
And Peter is so clever. The first time we did it with a full orchestra. I mean, like 88 pieces. So I called Peter and said, "Hey," because I was talking to the conductor, said, "Hey, I want, we need a bass player, and I want to." He goes, "Oh my God, I need a bass player." So I called Peter and said, "Peter, come on down." He says, "Okay." So he's playing with an orchestra, a concert orchestra, and just have no problem. And at one point, we brought him forward to introduce us. Remember that? And he looked and put his arms around us. He goes, "I just really love what you guys are trying to do here." Yeah. not what you're accomplishing, but what you're trying to do.
No, it's great. And it's pretty difficult to keep us both from continuing to sing the praises of the show. We are buttering our own bread. I get it, but honest to God, you're
edit that part out for us, okay?
No, but the two of us, though, I mean, we have had this incredible good fortune, and a day doesn't go by. We talk about this all the time. I think I've had the pleasure of meeting you guys before, albeit 20 odd years ago. And
in Tucson, we got to meet them in Tucson at the live show too.
Yeah.
But you would be, and your audience would be hard pressed, and I'm serious as a heart attack. You would be hard pressed to find anyone, anywhere, who has ever met the usual suspects: Randy, Tress, Jim Cummings, Frank, Maurice, over and over again, who would ever say, I met those guys and they're pretty difficult. They're a little arrogant. None of them are like that. It's utterly authentic. And then when you go to, these folks are still doing it at a high level, like Randy, 25 years later. And you meet them again and they go, oh my God, they really are nice people. You know why? Because we get how lucky we are. We get it. We are you. Yeah. We're fans. We're in the studio all the time looking at each other with our mouths on the ground going, pardon me, how the fuck do you do that?
It's also really a treat for us to, say, Joey, when we get to actually meet people like you in person, because, I'd have to say probably Rob and Tress and Jess, because they're the real talent of the show, and they get, that's who Warner Brothers sends out. They go to the cons. They get a little bit more opportunity to interface with the fans. Obviously, they can't interface with all of them, but for people like me, too, who are writers or people who are composers, people who are animators and directors, all that, we just sit in a room at a studio. We don't get to see the effect of our material on people. So when we get to get out into the onto the stage of the world, or meet with you like meeting now, it's really a treat for us. It's just such a fun joy for us.
That used to be a big part of my.
So the meet and greets are so much fun.
Tress has always been very reticent to go do live events, not because she's afraid. She grew up in the Groundlings. All her pals were Paul Rubens and Phil Hartman and Jan Hooks and all the usual suspects. And Tress has done only over 500 episodes of The Simpsons alone. She is unequivocally
she's a regular on Futurama.
Yeah, the most accomplished voice actress in the history of Hollywood. No offense, June, but she really is. Tress really is.
Yep.
Now, but
even June would agree with that.
I just would, like Randy said, I'd go to all these events and stuff, and you guys met Tress all those years ago. But when the convention scene really exploded and I started to go to all these events, and I thought, oh my God, I've known Tress since she was a cocktail waitress. And so I wanted to have the experience, both personally and vicariously through Tress. I wanted to watch people flip out when they met her, Joey and Nathan.
It's like what I did when I met Chuck Jones. It's like, you're meeting someone that you've grown up with. It's a
absolutely.
The number of times that I would be sitting, my line was gone, and I'd be sitting like this watching Tress.
Yeah.
And you guys, it's not anything but the gospel truth. People would wait for an hour. And then they would meet Tress, and she would riff as Dot or Babs or the crazy cat lady or whatever.
Moms of Futurama,
yeah, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they would start doing this. Often they would cry. They would make stuff for her. They would tell her how their child was able to become verbal, was able to control their autism because of characters that Tress would create. And she, of course, had no idea. And she would look at me with tears in her eyes. And I'm saying, I told you. And
because they're very self-effacing. Hey, Rob, you just brought up an important point. I'm glad you said this. Rob and I do this, all over the country. And after the show, we will oftentimes do a meet and greet where we get to meet certain fans. They pay extra to do that, but it always bugs me that they have to stand in line.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. And so I told next time when we do it from now on on the stage, I want to we're going to just host a lobby, like a little cocktail party where everybody walks around, nobody stands.
Yeah. So it's not. It shouldn't be that line.
It's like when you go to a con, you have to stand in line. Well, guess what? With the Looped live experience, now we only have 50 slots though. So if you're going to do it, get in there fast. But what's really great about it when we talk to them, because Rob and I did not know if we really wanted to do this, but when they were saying, well, Megan Trainor's doing it, well, Seth is doing it, and ICM, we thought, well, let's check it out. One of the nice things they do, if you sign up for the meet and greet, they just call your phone. So you don't have to wait online. You're doing your thing, and it'll say, Joey, you're third in line now. It's coming up. And then when it comes up, boom, your phone rings, it comes up, and we're all together like we're in a Zoom call right now.
Really cool.
And you don't have to stand in line. You can do whatever the heck you want. So that
really truly is the next experience. It is the next best thing to being there. But just like everything else, as utterly destructive as this whole circumstance has been, on so many levels, and you don't need Yakko to tell you that. But we find there's this glorious who'da thunk how cool this can be under a circumstance that we were kind of 6 months ago going, oh, we got to dump all these great live dates. Well, you know what? It's turned out that there is a really lovely silver lining, and it's great.
And it's a different, it's sort of a different medium, which opens up all other new possibilities as well.
Anyway, hey Nathan, do you and Joey want to talk?
No, I'm love listening.
Nathan,
that's a good thing. Do you have any other questions?
Nathan, what question do you have here for us?
So do you guys have like a favorite song that you sing at Animaniacs concert?
Well, you know what? I have a couple of favorites. Obviously, Yakko's World is our Stairway to Heaven. But I really like, I love the Randy wrote a song, because he had an extra 17 minutes on a Tuesday. He wrote a song in which he explains the concept of time in a clever, wonderful, original music way. And it's called When You're Traveling from Nantucket. And I love singing that song because I can, it's very legato. I can do whatever I want. And Randy follows me with the piano and the orchestra follows me.
Yeah, the orchestra follows you pretty well.
And it's a very lovely way of, I can vamp in the middle of it. I can hold a note for 30 seconds and screw with the audience. And so I really love, from a performance standpoint, I love that.
When you're traveling from Nantucket through Chicago to St. Paul, and you're standing in the airport and you look on a wall, there's a clock for every city and a different time for all. From Asia through Malaysia to Peru. Did you ever wonder why that when it's 6 o'clock in Maine, at precisely the same minute, it is 8 a.m. in Spain? When it's breakfast time in Rome, they're having lunch in Ukraine. And it's supper up in Upper Kathmandu. If the earth is spinning faster while the sun is moving faster, then a day might only be an hour long. And so the day begin would only last a minute before everybody has to run along. If the earth were the planet that was closest to the sun, a year would be much shorter and you'd have a lot of fun. Because by the time you were in first grade, you'd be over 21. And you'd live to be 9, 3, or 4.
Obviously, Yakko's World is so remarkable. And it truly never does get old. And the question that often people ask me is, you ever get tired of singing that song? And of course, are you kidding me? No. The problem
now he does the encore to it too. But this Yakko's universe, all the funny stuff from the Hysteria. I remember they asked Steven Spielberg one time, who's our producer, by the way. They said, "What's your favorite movie that you've made?" And he said, "Why don't you ask me which of my children is my favorite?" It's like hard to say that. But I will tell you, as an adjunct, people ask me, "What's the hardest song you've ever written?" And the answer to that is the song I'm writing right now, which, by the way, I just finished a song for Animaniacs. I'm writing another song for Animaniacs when I get off with you guys. And it's the hardest song I've ever written because it's the one I'm writing right now. But then when I'm done, it's all done and it's great. Then I go, oh, that wasn't so bad. So that's just how the process.
But the question really is more about, because you guys are not only experts and the cognoscenti and the go-to guys for this show, but the question bigger with experts, what are your respective?
Yeah, that's what we'd like to know.
Well,
that's a good question.
I will tell you that some of my favorite parts of Animaniacs in concert are, number one, hearing the development of a song, such as L.A. Dot or La Dot. And then just hearing, and I love both versions. And depending on the day, I will flip to, oh, that's a better version, or this is a better version. They're both fantastic.
They're both so different too. Yeah, yes. I'm just like,
they're so catchy. They're so great, and I love both versions.
So cherished and adored, it's my reward for being honest and so shy. It's true, I am the dust, and you are not.
And I also love really just being exposed to some of Randy's work with Hysteria, with the Spice song or the Invasion song, which I wasn't.
Works of William Shakespeare. Are you?
Oh yes, yeah. I wasn't too familiar with any of those. So it actually, I went and bought the Hysteria complete series because I was like, I got to listen to more.
That's what's so great about Animaniacs in concert, because it's not just relegated to Animaniacs music. It's the guy who composed most of those songs, but Randy's music and the scope of it, even in the context of Warner Brothers, is much bigger than just.
But it was also still a Ruger show, a Tom Ruger show,
Tom Ruger.
And the same. It was you guys. It was the same group of people.
Stoner and
In fact, we probably should have had an Hysteria franchise within Animania. You should just folded it right in there.
Yeah.
I got to ask you a quick question about the Invasion song, though, Randy.
Egypt invaded the Syrians, who invaded the Arab sheiks. Hannibal then invaded the Romans invaded the Greeks. The Saxons invaded Britain, the Mongols invaded Japan. Japan invaded Manchuria, and Iraq invaded Iran.
I was humming it the other day, and then I was humming a different song, and that was Tom Lair's "I Got It From Agnes."
I got it from Agnes, she got it from Jim. We all agree it must have been Louise who gave it to him. Now she got it from Harry, who got it from Marie. And everybody knows that Marie got it from me.
Now,
I got Agnes, well, you know what? Tom Lair stole that from me.
Oh, really? About 30 years before.
They say that there's 88 notes, they've all been played. So I think probably there are, you can feel similarities, but differences. I actually have a Tom Lair story, because I'm like you, I was a big fan. I'm assuming you're a big fan of his.
Yes.
And there was a book that came out, and it was like books on lyricists. And songwriter, and some friend of mine had given, and so I looked at it, and it was interviewing, and one of them was Tom Lair, and so I was reading it about, because I think the guy's genius, and as I went through, they talked about, again, this is another anecdotal story. While I'm at Warner Brothers, remember I wrote Yakko's World, which is a list, and then they said, well, how to do the States of the Capitals? Well, how to do the universe? I said, guys, I can do more than a list song, and that's when I wrote I'm Mad and those kind of songs, right? But at one point, we get fan mail all the time, and it goes to the head of the studio, and Jean McCurdy gave it to me. She was the head of the studio. And it said, why don't you write, she says, this was directed to you. It says, why don't you write a song with all the elements of the periodic table? And I said, because Tom Lair already did it, and I can't improve on that, right? I can't. The bastard beat me to it, and he did it better than I could, right? So then I'm reading this interview with Tom Lair, right? One of my heroes. And somebody asked him, hey, how come you never did a song about all the countries of the world? And Tom Lair said, I tried, but I couldn't figure out how to make it work. So I went, good. I have that one little victory with Tom Lair.
Yes.
And again, forgive me, but see, every time this happens, and especially with people who are experts, it reminds me, and this is what what's so great about the show is that we can, we have the flexibility of the live show that we're doing at Loop Live. Like the in-person show, we have the ability to manipulate. We have a general arc, but we can improvise. Okay, this is another great example of how stuff happens when you're lucky enough to work on something that has become Animaniacs. I don't know if you guys are Rush fans, but my whole background musically was first class, learning to read and do classical music and quiet choral music. And then I was a rock and roll guy for years and years, because whether the band is good or it sucks, if you're in it, chicks dig you. Okay. So anyway, years ago, Neil Peart, as you recall, the drummer from Rush, died a couple of years ago, or a year ago, whatever. It was tragic. But before he died, he had a very tragic life. His wife died of cancer, I think, and then his daughter died in an automobile accident. He had a very, very difficult personal experience. So he often, when Rush traveled on North American tours, Neil would follow the tour on his motorcycle because it allowed him to decompress. And he wrote a book about his experiences with his personal tragedies and how he got through them via his motorcycle riding, called Ghost Rider. And in the book, I don't know how it happened, but a fan sent me this paragraph in which he referenced how much he missed watching cartoons with his daughter, who had passed away after he lost his wife. And he was talking about this glorious memory of watching their favorite show, which was Pinky and the Brain. Mm-hmm. Now, that stuff happens with Randy's music, and you guys know it happens with you personally and others you meet who will tell you the most personal stories about how something that was to us not only enjoyable, but it was how we were paying our mortgage. But now the glorious aspect of Animaniacs in concert is that we get to see people who tell us these things, often through tears, that is way bigger than a paycheck, way bigger than an action figure or a rating point. It's a big deal, you guys.
Yeah.
And you help us to spread that. And it turns out that we have this incredible connection to a show that has really been important to many people.
Well, yeah,
it's all about the laughter. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Joy. I interrupted.
No, I was just going to say, it just reminds me of what Jim Henson through Kermit the Frog said once.
Yeah.
It's just like making millions of people happy. That was like the main call for, like, in the Muppet movie for Kermit. It's like, come to Hollywood. He's like, why? You'll make millions of people happy. Yeah. Millions of people happy. And he goes, okay, that's his like incentive for, and you guys are so lucky to be in.
Period.
Oh, I bet, yeah. And that's a good one to cite, because Jim Henson is like top tier.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah. Well, music has obviously been an incredibly important part of the original series, and we've been told that it's going to be an incredibly important part of the reboot as well.
Yep.
And Rob, you've also put a picture on Instagram showing yourself like recording some music for the upcoming series.
Right.
Well, what can you guys tell us with the reboot when it comes to music? Can we expect to see any more educational songs? Are you guys recording virtually at this point? Like, how are orchestrations going and stuff like that? What can you tell us? I know you can't say too much.
Yeah.
In a word, yes.
Okay.
Randy is writing new songs. There are,
but I'm not, just so you know, I'm not like I was before, because I'm not on staff. I'm writing some. Most of them, I think, are being written by the people on the staff.
There are, like the original Animaniacs, although Randy's songs were the ones that most people recall, he did not write every one of them. Right. And that is the way it is with the new episodes. Randy's already written, half a dozen songs, I guess, for the show.
Yeah. With Wellesley, Wells,
right.
The showrunner.
There are, again, you guys, it's just one of these things that's so cool. There are, for instance, two young men writing songs who are Scottish, two young men who live in Scotland who have written a number of songs for the show. But they're like you. They grew up watching the show and were inspired and inspired specifically by Randy. And while we are now living that example that Chuck Jones gave to us a few years ago. So now when Randy, these guys are in Scotland and they're on a Zoom call while we're doing the vocals, and Randy might show up because his song is next. But as soon as I let these two knuckleheads in Scotland know that who is in the recording booth, they freak out. and it's not feigned. They're like, that's the guy.
It's like what you and I did with Mel Blanc and
right.
By the way, Rob Paulsen sat next to Mel Blanc at a recording studio.
I did. I got to sit next to Mel years ago on a Jetsons project.
Oh,
and
totally starstruck, right? Yeah.
The late great Gordon Hunt was directing the cartoons at Hanna-Barbera, and he said, "Hey, Robbie, Mel's here today, working. He's doing Mr. Slate on this Jetsons project. You want to sit next to him?" I said, so I sat next to him, and he's probably 78 at the time, and I said, "Mr. Blank, like everybody with a pulse, I am a big fan. If you don't," he knew exactly what I wanted. And so he looks at me and he takes off his glasses and he goes, "Yeah, what's up, Doc?" And that's all it took.
Carried Rob out on a stretcher.
That's all it took. But you know what? I am never, and it's not false modesty. Obviously, I'm good at my job. But I have a similar experience now. All I have to do is say, "Nerve." And look what happens to you guys. And it happens to police officers. It happens to Marines. I've worked for the USO and I've been at Quantico.
You ever been pulled over by a police officer and went into a pinky
listen, check
seriously? I was just joking.
No, almost. I live out here in the country. It's in LA County, but the country part of LA County. And I was following a motorcycle cop one day who had a bendable Yakko figure on the antenna of his radio apparatus. And I recognized myself twisted around his radio apparatus. So I followed him to the sheriff's station and I pulled in behind him. And of course, he's looking at his rearview mirror on his motorcycle and he sees me pulling in, and I pulled in next to him, and he's a badass, and he has his helmet on and he raises his visor. He says, "Can I help you, sir?" And he should. Yeah. He doesn't know who the hell I am. And I said,
"Yeah."
I couldn't help but notice, but you had me twisted around your antenna.
He then lifted up whatever was left of his visor. He said, "I'm sorry?"
Said, "You like Animaniacs. That's me. You've got me." And I got to tell you, I'm chafing from being wrapped around your goddamn antenna. He said, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "I'm sorry. I'm just messing with you. But it appears to me that you are a fan, or somebody is a fan of Animaniacs, because you have Yakko wrapped around your antenna." He said, takes off his helmet. He said, "Holy are you the voice of Yakko?" In the flesh.
And he flipped out.
He got a police escort home.
Right. He went from being "Just the facts, sir," or "Do you realize you were speeding, sir?" or "May I see your license and registration, sir?" to "Oh my God, we love that show. My kids and I watch it all the time. They got this somehow and made me put it on my, on my motorcycle. What a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Paulsen. Do you live around here?" I said, "Oh my God." It happens all the time. And just like Jim Henson said, it's nothing about anything but joy. Mm-hmm. And it's glorious. And we are the ones who are beholden to you. And
it's really the gift is ours, because it's such a joy to be.
We're the ones who
entertain you guys. Hey, listen, let's let them, because it's almost 11. I got to get running. But did you have any other questions for us, Joey?
Sure, just a couple. I know you guys cannot say really much of anything, literally nothing about the reboot, but our listeners would be.
Sure, you got to ask.
You got to ask. You got to at least ask, and then you guys can say no comment, and that's fine, because that's perfectly understandable.
because Warner Brothers will show up at our door with 5 goons.
Exactly. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. Okay, so even I guess one thing that some people are a little concerned about, and maybe you can just talk in generalities with this, is the show still a little bit edgy? I know that some people are always like, oh, I wonder if they're going to have that little bit of edge that Animaniacs has. It's always been a kid's show first and foremost, right. I think. But
Rob, I'm going to let you answer that.
And again, in a word, yes. Look, you guys.
Let me just say one thing. Wellesley Wild from Family Guy is running the show.
Yeah, Family Guy's not known for not being edgy.
Exactly.
Yeah, and he was also co-producer of the Ted movie. He's Seth's right-hand guy. This is not a shrinking violet, And look, I'll just
and the guy's a genius. Wellesley is a brilliant guy.
He is, of course, he is, and everybody knows, and I'm not letting anybody know anything that isn't common knowledge. Tom Ruegger is not producing the show. We don't have the same writing staff. All of that. There was I'm trying very difficult, I'm trying very hard not to be disrespectful. Look, this is show business, folks. This is Hollywood. This is not a bunch of people, and I don't mean this disrespectfully. This is not a bunch of fans who are deciding we're going to get together and make a new Animaniacs. This is Steven Spielberg. Don't bet against Steven Spielberg.
And Warner Bros. And, in fairness, too, that our generation is one generation. There's a new generation. Right. Wellesley has to be able to hire the people that he's comfortable with. Doesn't mean the other writers wouldn't be good, but it's his vision of the show. So, like Julie and Steve Bernstein have come back, who did a lot of the orchestra.
They are now the Richard Stones of the show.
They were fooled by Richard. But, Steven Spielberg specifically wanted to have the same voice talent. But I write a little bit. I'm not full-time on the show. I write a little bit on the show but I completely understand that. They need to be put together the team now in this day and age with what they're doing and adjust the show for the audience today.
Yes.
Because that's the only way you're going to have
and
show.
It is
living in the past.
And that is not ever to discount the genius and the original creativity of Tom Ruegger, Steven Spielberg, Gene McCurdy, Peter Hastings.
If it weren't for the brilliance of Tom Ruegger, who created
Ruegger,
they would not be making. We wouldn't be here making new Animaniacs.
Right.
It was brilliant. And by the way, Tom's moved on to other things. I was talking to Paul Rudd. And I saw Paul said, he said, God, I did everything that I wanted to do on that show. He's moved on to other shows and all that. But the team that's in place now and the people who are running
fantastic.
it are
and
all just really clever, wonderful people.
It's very edgy. My God, you guys, it's 25 years later. And remember, people, and I understand, I'm a fan, so I understand the concern. But you have to put it in relative terms, okay? It is not worth getting angry or freaked out,
especially without even having seen it.
There was Nathan, that's right.
Right, Animaniacs, right. And I get the cleverness of the wordplay, but with all due respect, it's Steven Spielberg. That has nothing to do with the genius of Tom Ruegger. He still is a genius.
And I think Tom was a consultant at first. He spoke. They consulted him at first and all.
He doesn't own the show, guys. I don't own it. Warner Brothers owns it.
Yeah, and a guy like Tom. Yeah, and a guy like Tom understands. I need to let Wellesley have his space.
And so while we'd be stupid not to consider what got us here.
Right. So, and the folks that we've kind of, talked to behind the scenes that are working on the show have essentially said the same, that they say that we're like standing on the shoulders of giants, essentially.
Of course.
That they totally are like, we can't believe how lucky we are.
Joey, I've never been called a giant, but I like that.
You're welcome.
I love that. Randy, I know you got to go. I can hang out a little bit, but please, for the fans out there who are the least bit concerned, you have this incredibly wonderful opportunity that no one before you in the fan base of in the history of the fans of the world have ever had. You're going to have a show that was a clean sheet of paper, and it ended up being what it is as a result of the genius primarily of Tom Ruegger, Steven Spielberg, and Gene McCurdy, and hiring the best of the best. Okay, absolutely. That's why we're here. Now, we have this brand new platform that never existed before. You folks, the fans, and us, the fans, are going to get to watch their favorite episode of Animaniacs from 97, 98, 96, and then 5 seconds later, watch a brand new episode that has been done with the ethos firmly implanted in the minds of all the people who were inspired by Stephen, by Tom, by Gene, by Randy, by Peter Hastings, Deanna Oliver,
Paul Rugg, Sherry Stoner.
Okay, they've all been inspired. And 5 seconds later, you're going to get to watch a brand new episode with a 25-year gap. That is unprecedented.
Yes.
And you have two choices. And this is important because I read how angry people get. And respectively, stop it. The reason I say that with so much vigor is because give the goddamn thing a chance.
Absolutely.
And if you don't like it, and I'm dead serious, if you don't like it, click the channel. Mm-hmm. Don't watch it.
But I'm betting you will. And by the way, I might say this too, is that when you come to see bringing this back to Animaniacs in concert,
absolutely,
like you're going to be in touch with because we're doing the original stuff. Right. We're obviously not going to do anything from the new show until they air it and all that. So we are your touchstone, not only the material, but to the people who performed it.
And you will eventually, because we can't release them yet, but you will eventually hear new songs that Randy wrote that will be hits from the new version.
Yes.
And then you'll see a Broadway show with my stuff.
Yes.
So much stuff there. But I'm not angry at the fan base. I've been through this many times. You're talking to a guy who's had 3 rides in the Ninja Turtle van. And every time a new version comes up, people say, oh, no. And then they watch it. When I was Donatello in the 2012 Nickelodeon version, and people freak out and go, oh, my God, this is better than the original. Now, will that happen with Animaniacs? My bet is probably it will. But before it does, you have to know that it's in Steven Spielberg. Ultimately, he made the choice to do this. He went to every pitch to do this because it was that important. So it has nothing to do with dissing Tom or any of the other geniuses. It is about exactly what you suggested, you guys, is bringing
all
it
right,
into
enough of that. I mean, because we all love Tom and Stephen, and it's going to be a great show.
Bringing it into the zeitgeist because there is plenty of stuff to lampoon. There's plenty of it.
I'm saying that because I need to get going, guys.
Go ahead, Randy.
Do you have other stuff, Joey?
Randy, that's pretty much it for you. Can you just do me a quick thing, and then I'll loop you in at the very end? Just say good night, everybody.
Oh,
me?
Or
no,
that's Rob.
Randy.
Randy. Go ahead, Randy.
Well, I am not Rob Paulsen, so the way I would say it would be good night, everybody.
There you go. And then I'll put that little sound bit at the very end.
Yeah, we in that podcast.
Then you got to do Rob, who's the pro at it.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
And hopefully,
I was saying good night, everybody, and consider my spleen vented. I hope you didn't think I was angry.
No. And hopefully the reboot's still coming out 2020. Is that what we're still hearing, or is that?
Yes. In fact, I know
there is a date, but we can't tell you what it is.
Right.
Okay.
It is, and you will hear very soon. But we're looking at the fall of this year.
Okay. We're looking forward to the trailer or something.
Joey, they're gonna. Joey, Rob was telling me that they have a date and they will be announcing that date pretty quick.
Shortly.
And if you guys want, and I know you can edit this, but if you guys want, I can stick around for a bit.
Yeah, sure,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah.
To get to
Okay. All right, guys. Great talking to you. We'll do it again, okay?
Thanks, Randy.
Oh, great.
Bye,
Yeah.
Nathan. Bye,
All
George.
right.
Bye, Randy.
Bye, Randy.
I appreciate you asking. And again, forgive it's not anger, it's passion.
Absolutely.
Because I love this show. I have experienced this very phenomenon more than once. It happened with Tiny Toon Adventures. When Tiny Toon Adventures was ending and Animaniacs was being created, arguably by Tom Ruger, so it was the same group, and I get that. But even then, I used to see people going, "Oh, why don't they just make more Tiny Toons? They're going to screw this up." And they would literally say, "What is Steven Spielberg thinking? This show is great the way it is." And with all due respect, fans, and again, I'm a fan. Please listen to what you're saying. You're talking about Steven Spielberg. Now, mind you, every movie he's done has not been an Oscar winner. But don't bet against them.
Right.
Okay? And so when you hear or rumors get like, oh my God, is it going to be written as well? Because that is not a reflection on the writers that were there 25 years ago. It is not. What it is, in my view, is an homage, oh my God, are we going to be able to rise to that level? Because Tom Ruger is a certified genius. And everybody knows that. The people in charge know what they're doing, and they know that they're going to be spending tens of millions of dollars of someone else's money with something that a bar that's really high. Okay. So knowing that and respectfully, why the hell would they do something unless they said, you know what? We're confident that we can raise to the bar. And I have been in the room with the writers who are standing on the shoulders of Tom Ruger and Peter Hastings and Sherry Stoner et al. And when we start to riff, and we start to say, hey, God, I think so, Brian, but if Betty's white and Marvin's gay, is Jack black? They do what you're doing. But you know what else they do? The new writers start to get tearful because they go, oh my God, I see the gravity of what I'm here, what I'm doing. This bar is really high. And everybody is excited, but also a little freaked out because of what I just explained. You have the opportunity to watch your favorite episode and a brand new one right next to each other. And the 25-year gap will be gone in this quick.
Yeah.
Because of Hulu. And we know that you have, and Wellesley knows, and Stephen knows, and Sam Register knows that you have the right to go, click, not interested. We know that. But I've been through this so many times where once things play out, people go, oh my God, you know what? That was pretty good. And also remember, we're trying to cultivate a brand new audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe you're not the target audience anymore.
Right. With new sacred cows to lampoon. And respectfully, they know what they're doing. You have the choice, audience members, to not like it. And life will go on. And even if you get a little bit tearful and go, I don't like it, I think you will. But you guys, it's a cartoon show.
It really is. And this take it from people who have dedicated 4 years of their life on a podcast to a cartoon show, that it is just a cartoon show.
Yes. And we did an episode called the Please, Please, Please Get a Life Foundation.
Yes.
And everybody whom we lampooned in that loved it.
Yes.
Because it was us. I'm you. I'm not trying to be arrogant or condescending. I get it. I'm a fan. I flip out when I'm surrounded by Tress and Randy and Maurice. Yeah, they're my friends, but I'm a fan, you guys. So it is not lost on me how unique this circumstance is, and how in some realms it's a little bit sad, because we'd love everybody to be in the sandbox. But the cognizant choice to move forward with everyone but the Steve and Julie, Randy, maybe some others, and specifically the voice characters or the voice actors was a thoughtful one. And I understand the difficulty of a show like that moving on without some of the key players. And this is an important aspect of what you guys do, because I know how powerful it is. It's heartbreaking. Had they replaced Pinky and the Brain with, Russell Brand and Peter Dinklage, it would have been heartbreaking to me. I get that. And I really do, because I have been replaced as well. However, part of the reason that the show is so powerful
is that when I start doing this, you guys can't help but doing what you're doing.
You start to smile and your audience goes, oh my God, it's Yakko. And sadly, I don't write them and I don't draw them. And that's why I always say it is the characters who are famous. But if that's true, and to the extent that's true, the voice kind of transcends the writing. It doesn't mean that the show is successful just because of Rob. I make it clear that I do not write, and I will never be able to write like Tom, like Deanna, like Sherry, like Peter, like Nick Hollander, on and on. Never. But I was the one who got to be the voice guy. And Mel Blanc performed lots of different scripts, not just by the people who wrote Bugs in the 50s.
Right.
Okay. So it is a little bit different in that regard. It is not the Rob Paulsen show. People do not wait in line for the next Rob Paulsen cartoon.
But I happen to be the voice of Yakko. And I'll happen to be the voice of Pinky.
And for whatever reason, those voices have resonated with millions of people. And Mr. Spielberg and Wellesley Wild and the powers that be at Hulu were very smart, I think, in keeping the voice talent to the extent that we can still do it. Yeah. And we can. And I can still do it after having throat cancer.
Yeah.
Now that's something that's important to me, because they know we can still do it. Mm-hmm. And so do millions of people who listen to your show or go to see Animaniacs in concert or go to visit us at conventions all over the world.
They know that Maurice and I can still say, hey, God, Brain.
And so they would have been stupid to replace the voice talent, because we can still do it. And we have a chunk of time in which that's still going to work. So that's why that choice was made. It is not a reflection on the genius of anyone involved in what you celebrate. And so I really appreciate you letting me vent my spleen, because these people on both sides of the equations are my friends. Yeah. And some of them were heartbroken. And I understand why, because I've experienced it. But it is not to say that it's going to be better than. It's going to be different than.
Yeah. It reminds me of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle live action, like you talked about in the, like, you're like, why didn't I do the voice? But people really love that movie still. Of
course, because it's not about the actors. I mean, it's not about, it's the characters that are famous, right? And there are certain franchises that transcend the actors. Okay? Turtles is wholly unique in that it's had, I don't know, half a dozen iterations and 7 or 8 films, and I don't know how many Raphaels and Donatellos. I've been both. But nobody doesn't watch double negative. Nobody doesn't watch Turtles because Rob isn't in it. But now in this circumstance, we're talking about Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain, and that's a little bit different.
Right.
And to the extent, and those characters have become famous on their own because of of the whole of the experience, writing, producing, music, and voice acting. So the calculus was made that these characters are still famous vocally to two generations, your guys and the people who have children at your age who love it when I say, hello, nurse. And they can't stop but laugh. So that's a little bit of a different calculus. Right. And had I been replaced, it would have broken my heart because I've experienced it before. Mm-hmm. But I understand in this realm why they did it the way they did it. And like I said, it's so unique because of Hulu. You can watch an old episode and a new one, boom, with a 25-year span gone away.
Exactly. We cannot wait for that. It's coming out later this year. And of course, we're going to be talking about each episode. And, just like any show, it's going to have, like every show has a great, fantastic episodes. Yeah. And some episodes that are, they're okay.
And maybe there's like one great segment in the show, and
you guys have, 99 Animaniacs?
Yes. Yeah. Not all of them are amazing, but.
The brains or whatever it is to choose from. And then you have Pinky Elmira in the brain, and virtually everybody says, oh my God, what the hell were they thinking? I'll tell you what they were thinking. They were thinking, how can we squeeze another 13 episodes out of this?
Yeah.
It's show business, you guys. And so you have an utter right to criticize everything we do. Everything. Because it is show business. And then you decide not to watch it or to watch it. My whole point about this whole experience with respect to this particular show is to respectfully give it a chance. And if you don't like it, we won't do any more. It's that simple.
Yep.
And my suspicion is that people will like it precisely because of the genius of Tom Ruegger and his group on the first go around. They know how high the bar is, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to spend $100 million or whatever it is if they don't think they can reach that bar. And we're a year and change into it. And trust me, if they didn't think they were reaching it, they wouldn't keep going.
Yeah.
It's about, so I really appreciate the opportunity to say this with so much passion because it's way beyond a paycheck to me. This is my life.
Yeah.
And I know what I'm talking about. And I don't want it to suck. I don't want to be involved with something that doesn't work. And so I really, truly, deeply appreciate you guys giving me a chance to ramble because it's where I live, man.
Yeah.
And Yakko and Pinky, my book is called How a Couple of Ninja Turtles, Pinky and an Animaniac Saved My Life. I had throat cancer, you guys. I had stage 3 throat cancer. If there are any characters that got me through it to the times when I thought I will never be able to do this again, well, guess what? Steven Spielberg decided to keep me on after my cancer, not because he's a nice guy, because I can still do it. And so if anybody is going to be sensitive about how good the new show is, you're looking at him.
Mm-hmm.
So trust me, it's going to be good.
Well, that's fantastic.
And it's important because I know how important it is to your fan base. And I'm one of them. So I've said that 8 times, and I'm going to say, thank you very much, and go, and I hope I wasn't too off-putting.
No, not at all. And before we wrap things up, Rob, first of all, thank you so much for being on with us.
Yes, thank you.
You and Randy, it's just really been a treat.
This is a privilege, and I've worked really, really hard for this privilege, and that is what it is, you guys. Joey and Nathan, it is a privilege, nothing short of that, to be in a position in which 2 nice young men whom I met 25 years ago and are still kind enough to have me on, and millions of other people around the world in whatever realm, whether it's your podcast or something else, take the time to listen to what I have to say, you guys. This is a privilege. I'm not a movie star. Yakko is the movie star, and I'm part of it. But this is a my God, do you know how many actors would trade places with me? I am so privileged to be in this position. And moreover, I get it. So it is I and we who thank you, because without an audience, I know it's been said over and over again, but we got nothing without you guys. Nothing. Mm-hmm. And again, that's another thing you need to remember respectfully, not you, but the audience at large. The people at Hulu, at Netflix, and Mr. Spielberg, they know, just like THX, the audience is listening. And we know that. We got nothing without you. And we know that you guys ultimately hold the purse strings. So that's why it's so impassioned. We don't want this to suck.
Yeah, that's true.
You know?
Well,
thank you for giving me the chance.
No problem whatsoever. And Rob, you did mention your book.
That
came out about a year ago. Oh, did I? Did I happen to mention that? It is a fantastic book. It is a marvelous book, inspirational. Mm-hmm. It'll make you tear up. And plus, folks, it's a page turner, and you'll get through it. And
thank you.
You'll just keep going and going. And
yeah, it's hard to put down because they're like, well,
yeah. It's absolutely.
Oh my God! And by the way, spoiler alert: I didn't die.
Oh yeah! The whole time I'm like, what?
And Rob, you did
he make it?
Yeah. You did mention that you're not a movie star, but you have had a little roles here and there. And one movie that in particular that I think there's been some perhaps misinformation online about is the movie Spaceballs. Now you did the voice of the Dinks of some of the Dinks along with Phil Hartman, I believe, and stuff like that. But some people are like, Rob Paulsen appears on screen holding the comb, or Rob Paulsen is on screen pulling Dark Helmet out of the ship when he crashes. Are you actually physically on screen in Spaceballs?
Not unless somebody had a video camera or Mel Brooks was shooting video at the ADR session.
Okay.
No, I am not. But Mr. Brooks, we got to work with him for 2 days, and it was a remarkable group. It was Corey Burton, myself, Nancy Cartwright, Phil Hartman, John Paragon, whom you guys know as Johnby the Genie from
Pee-wee's.
I think Tress was there. So it was a remarkable group. And Mel Brooks.
I know. Cool. The legend. I wanted to make sure I cleared that up because I see so many people. And in fact, I was looking at IMDb this morning and it said Rob Paulsen as one of the Dinks and a guy holding the comb. And I'm like, that's
not physically. It's my voice.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. So glad we got that. And anyway.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay.
Sleep now, Nathan.
Good. I was so worried about it.
I know. Now Nathan can go to sleep. And I'm there watching him.
Well, let's go ahead and wrap things up. So, Nathan, where can people get in contact with you online?
Joey, I'm on Twitter. Django FT, that's me.
And Rob, where are some of the places that people can follow you online if they don't know?
If you happen to be in Lompoc Prison in Northern California,
you can get a hold of me at Yakko Pinky, YAKKOPINKY, NERV, not without the NERV, YAKKOPINKY on Twitter, Rob_Paulsen, PAULSEN on Instagram, Rob Paulsen, voice actor on Facebook. The book is Voice Lessons, How a Couple of Ninja Turtles, Pinky, and an Animaniac Saved My Life, which is available at your local bookstore if it's open, or on Amazon.
It's also an audiobook.
An excellent audiobook.
Thank you. And my son, Ash, who writes for Game Explain, which has 1,300,000 followers on YouTube, wrote the foreword and recorded the audio book foreword. My personal website is Rob Paulsen Live and Animaniacsinconcert.com. And you can find us at loopedlive.com. And I'm telling you, I think that this Animaniacs in Concert on Looped is going to probably end up doing more than a couple, because we're getting a really good response, and it's turning out to be way better than I thought it would. So I hope you check it out on August 15th. It's going to be pretty cool.
Fantastic.
But honestly, you guys know that I always say that laughter is the best medicine. And the cool thing is you can't OD and the refills are free. And you and Nathan and Kelly are the living examples of that. And really, 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 we will never be able to thank you enough for the love and passion you show for our little show. And you do need to know, you guys, that while we don't say it every day because we can't, it's madness. But Mr. Spielberg and Wellesley and Tom, you've had him on, I know, but Tress and Jess and everybody knows about you. They know about you guys, and they know about the passion. And the very reason that people get this shit done is because guys like you get this stuff out there, and they pay attention to social media. Warner Brothers, worldwide publicity monster machine, Hulu, they all pay attention to this stuff. So I don't think it would be hyperbole to suggest that all of you have had a hand in getting this done again, because they see how big the passion is. All of us have a hand in getting these knuckleheads to pony up to do it again. So thank you. We really do owe you and the fan base the thanks, because your passion is what has gotten this show on its feet again. And so honestly, I get really emotional, but thank you. It's a big deal.
No thank yous needed for us, but we just love doing it. And hey, let's get next time. Let's get you and Jess and Tress, and hey, we'll invite Mr. Spielberg on as well.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm sure
have you had Maurice on yet?
We have had a Goodfeathers reunion with him.
Oh, excellent! But you haven't had a Pinky and the Brain?
No, we have not.
Well, I've seen the Brain naked, and I will call him.
Well, let's get you and Maurice on. Let's keep this going, and
great.
And love to keep talking to you
Thanks a lot, you guys.
Future.
Thank you very much for your patience with my rambling. But when I have this opportunity, it's really important for me to vent my spleen. And you can cut this up any way you want. But the bottom line is, I just want you to know that we get how lucky we are, and we know literally who butters our bread. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And as for the Animanicast, you can find us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And go ahead and subscribe to the Animanicast on your favorite podcast player, whatever that happens to be. Or you could go on to Animanicast.com, and that'll take you to our RetroZap podcast archive over there at RetroZap. We're a proud member of the RetroZap podcast community. You could subscribe to the RetroZap podcast feed, and that way you can get every RetroZap podcast, including this one, delivered straight to your device for free. And hey, why not head over to our Discord group? You can get a welcome link by going to discord.animanicast.com, and that'll take you right on over to the RetroZap Discord group, where you can talk about all things pop culture. And that's about it for us.
Okay.
So,
see you in the water tower.
I suppose let's just go ahead and wrap it up. So for Nathan, Rob, and Randy, and Kelly, who couldn't be here today, but for all of us, good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
This podcast is not endorsed by Warner Brothers or Amblin Entertainment and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Animaniacs, Tiny Toon Adventures, Freakazoid, the Warner Brothers logo, all names, pictures, and sounds are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of the Animanicast unless otherwise indicated.
Good night, everybody.